Welcome back, everyone. It's FNews57 here. Today I'm on a new game, Crypt of the Serpent King, and this will be your walkthrough on basically how to 100% the game and get all achievements. So, it's a relatively simple game. It's been out for a little while, almost a year now. I think maybe a touch longer. And I have almost all the achievements already, with just 2 more to go. And, well, I'll be showing you how to get those in this guide. So, you can see, if I go to my recent achievements, I've already gotten most of the achievements for completing the game on easy, normal, and then working on the achievements for hard. And I've seen that some people were having a bit of a issue completing the game, even though it is an easy game, and the achievements are literally titled complete the game on this difficulty, complete level 1 on easy, level 2 on easy, so on and so forth. So I picked up the game because it was on sale and it was like $2, so couldn't really beat it. Not for 1,000 gamer score, not if you like achievement hunting like I do. Now the music can be a little bit loud, which is the only thing that I would recommend. Maybe turn down the music just a touch from the regular settings, but that's the only thing that I would recommend that you do. I would not recommend you turn down the effects volume because you will need that later. So you'll notice if you're playing on easy, you don't have to really follow these steps. It's a lot more forgiving. Normal is a little bit less forgiving. Hard is completely unforgiving. You make one mistake, that's it, game over. Now luckily, if you do fail, you only have to restart from the level that you are on. So as you can see here, I'm just getting ready to start level 6. You have 3 stats that you can upgrade. For hard, I would recommend that you prioritize agility and strength. I figured out most of these steps and a few tweaks on my own, but I did double check it with a few other guides. One that I found that was written that was done really well was by Scooby Dooby Don't, I believe. So shout out to him for making that written guide. I decided to make a video because a few things were, well, a little bit different, and I found a few extra tips. So before I get started on the mission, as you can see, I already have the best weapons basically in the game. I have the sword and I have the bow. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown. This is assuming you're playing on hard. You can use the tips for easy and normal if you would like, but that is completely up to you. So the very first weapon that you get is going to be the hatchet. And this weapon I recommend that you use for all of level 1 and level 2, especially if you're playing on hard. Now, normally the next weapon that you would unlock is the mace, but I don't particularly like wasting the gold unlocking it. So it's going to make level 2, level 4, and, well, to a certain extent, level 5. But mostly level 2 and level 4 are going to be the hardest ones for you. Level 2, if you're using this method because you only have the hatchet, it doesn't do much damage and it's a very close range weapon. So I would highly recommend that you skip the goblins. Try to run around past them. They're not worth it. They can hit you for 20 points of damage, and, well, they only give you 12 XP. So just run around, get the keys, get what gold you can, if you can, and then move on. Now, once you get past level 2, you should have enough gold to go ahead and buy the Halberd, which is 2,000 gold. This weapon does a massive amount of damage and has a really long range. That should be good for you until you get to around level 4, level 5, somewhere around completing those 2 levels. You should have plenty of gold required if you skip buying the flail to buy the sword, which is the highest damage melee weapon in the game. And you should have enough gold to buy the bow. The bow is 18,000, the sword is 6,000. You can use endurance. Endurance is more important on the lower difficulties because you can play aggressively. On the higher difficulties, you cannot afford to take a hit, so endurance doesn't really help you. It's all about attack speed and actual attack damage. Now I'm going to go ahead and play the 1 level to show you. So this is going to be level 6. I should mention that you always fight the exact same type of enemy on each level, and that does not change across the difficulties. So if you have a ranged weapon, you're going to start with a ranged weapon, and you'll see that you'll start with 20 arrows. Now, yeah, this game is not really that great for graphics and all, but I just got it for the gamer score since it was on sale for $2. Now, pay attention because I'm going to show you what I do for the level. So most enemies, this game is about timing, back off when they attack, and if I can get my timing down right, then you can hit them when they are stunned after they attack you. So with the sword, as you'll see, it swings once from the right, once from the left. It's actually 2 separate hits, and if you can hit an enemy with both hits, you're good to go. Now that's a prime example of what you don't want to do, so I'm going to let that spider kill me because he managed to show up from behind me and hit me while I was doing the chest, so that is like game over right there, and you have to restart. Basically, if you get hit once on these later levels, it's not worth it. So now you know what to look out for, because guess what? There's no sound from enemies. It's really annoying. The effect sound will change when you aggro an enemy, but it will not actually make a specific noise for when you're fighting an enemy. So just keep that like in mind. You can't hear enemies, and not being able to hear enemies is probably one of the things that makes the game more difficult. So I do a quick check for anything that's around me. Go ahead and grab the key. Some people were having a problem with these jumps. As long as you get to the edge and then jump, it's a relatively simple jump. You shouldn't fail that. If you do fail the jump, though, you will be killed. There's pretty much no way to survive it. So I'm going to bring that spider over here and show you one other tip you can use, which is to come to the edge of the platform, because thankfully enemies can't jump, so you can basically just kill the enemy that way. You can lure them to the platform, jump over to the center where the keys are, and then just attack the enemy. Now that works with 2 weapons. It works with the sword and it works with the halberd. I don't know if it will work with the flail because I've never wasted the gold on buying it. So like I said, there's that little audio cue. If it wasn't for the audio cue, this spider probably would have gotten me. But yeah, it's pretty simple and straightforward. You can use your arrows if you want. Even though the bow does 140 damage, or it says it does 140 damage, you'll notice that I'm only doing 2 attacks and killing the spiders. But if I pull out my bow, see, there's the audio cue. It's 1 arrow, 2 arrows, 3. Took 3 arrows and I did waste a shot because there's no way to hold a shot. But it takes 3 arrows to drop the spider, and that's only with 9 strength. So it actually technically takes another shot, or it seems like it takes another shot to drop the spider, and that's only because the bow fires 1 arrow at a time, whereas the sword, assuming you hit with both strikes, is actually 2 strikes. So it's a little bit more damage. Opening the chest is pretty important, but be very careful when opening the chest because that's statistically when I get hit the most. Once you get to the later level, level 7, there's really not a whole lot of a point in killing enemies because you cannot earn the experience, or I should say you cannot use the experience that you earn. Also, the only point in collecting gold is just to make yourself feel better, because it literally doesn't do anything. So if it is a risk to losing HP, which you will need for the boss fight, since on hard there are no food pickups, which means that you cannot regenerate your health, you need to be extremely careful. So you just gotta be like on a 360 with this game. It's simple. The achievements are relatively easy, surprisingly, but if your timing is off, you will die, and you will die quickly. Also, the enemies will attack out of their normal attack pattern if you're within range and trying to attack them. So you've seen like that spider tried to attack me multiple times. Other than that, it's a pretty simple dungeon crawler. You can just complete the map. I like to take my time with it, especially when going around doors. When going around doors and corners, you're very vulnerable as you don't have a whole lot of time to react should there be an enemy there. Also, if your cursor is not red, you will not hit the enemy. So there are certain enemies, like on the previous level, on level 5, when you're fighting the soldiers, they have a relatively small hitbox, and that can be slightly annoying because the enemies don't actually have a hitbox on their head. The spider is the only exception to that rule. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete this whole level, and depending on how quickly and the difficulty that you're on, I've been going through the levels as fast as 5 minutes to about as long as 12 to 15 minutes. So they're not really that bad at all. I'll give you a few tips for the earlier levels while I'm running through this. Level 2, like I said, is the absolute hardest in my opinion because the goblins are one of the very few enemy types that actually has 2 separate attack patterns. They have a slightly slower attack that is them with both swords swinging side to side, and then they also have a fast overhand chop. So since they have 2 attack patterns, in my opinion, they're more annoying than the other enemies and are harder to deal with. Also, level 2 has no spike traps or lava traps for you to jump over and hide, just flame traps. And the flame traps do damage, so you can run the goblins through them, but I would just tell you to avoid them. Some people have said to use a similar technique to what I'm doing, where you take a step forward, make the enemy swing at you, then take a step back while he's swinging and move forward with an attack shortly after his swing. You can do that if you want a little bit more XP. Personally, I really don't think the XP is worth it, though. That's just my opinion. Now, you can press start, pull up the map, and see what portion of the dungeon you've cleared, which is very useful if you want to see the overall map, especially on like level 2 when you're going to be running from enemies at literally every corner if you use the technique that I used. But I like to get all the chests that I can whenever I can, even if I have to kind of train some enemies away and then come back for them. I didn't do that, though. I only picked up 1 chest on level 2, but I got all the chests on all the other levels, and that's how I afforded to be able to buy the expensive weapons here for level 6. So you shouldn't have a problem with gold. Even though it's on hard and there isn't a ton of gold that spawns, you should have more than enough gold to buy the sword, the bow, the halberd, and probably then still have some left over, as long as you've been meticulous about collecting as much gold as you can safely. With that being said, the hardest part is, of course, the boss fight. The boss fight for the second mission, again, in my opinion, the most difficult of the missions. But the boss fight for the second mission is in a very small room, and it is basically a large goblin with a mace and shield. So how I advise you doing that fight, most of the time I was trying to use this technique right here, the take a step back out of their range technique. But that was not working for me because of the size of the room. So what I found is to keep the boss in the center of the room, and as he attacks, move around to his left, because he attacks basically from his right with a right to left swing. And you can pretty much use a Dark Souls style, since there is no roll in this game. You have to basically walk to the left, to your left, to his right. And as long as you keep walking around him and attacking, you should be fine. You should be able to do enough damage to him as he's going through his attack animation. And you shouldn't get hit. I got hit once. And that's how I did the second boss fight. Alright, I think I just aggroed a second spider. you have to be careful. The audio cues don't always work normally. Like sometimes if you're running from enemies, you'll hear them attack you and you'll look behind you, but there won't be any enemy there. So just keep in mind that that happens too. Now, the only other difficult spot that I had in the game where this strategy was a little bit annoying is the very first time I went through the last level, which I will show you, but that's up to you. I might not actually be doing a voiceover at that point. I might just show you the gameplay. We'll see when we get there. I don't want to make the video longer than it needs to be, but since I'm basically covering more than just one achievement, I'm covering literally all the achievements, 100%ing the game, that's why it's going to take a minute longer. So you can see now what I have to do is I have to go all the way back down to basically the bottom of the map. And that's going to take a little second. There is a jump in the game, but there is no sprint. Overall, I would say, as a quick review, yeah, graphics aren't great. Lighting and shadows and everything like that isn't great. But the enemy does cast a shadow that is pretty accurate. So if you keep an eye out for that, it's almost better than the audio cue. You'll know when one's behind you. And as far as achievements go, yeah, relatively easy. So I always like achievements whenever I can get them. I would have to say I can't give the game a super high rating simply because of replayability. There isn't a whole lot. Once you beat the game on one difficulty, there's no point to play it on that difficulty. The only point is to go back and play it on a lower difficulty. So I would say a fair rating for the game would be a good 7 out of 10. I can't give it too high of a rating simply because you could beat it in one night. But as far as achievements go, I love achievements. So now we're in a boss. There is an update where the bosses can be very hard to hit with the bow. As you see, he's kind of doing like a little side step animation. And this is the easiest of all the bosses here on level 6. But you can hit him with the bow if you do your timing. It's just if you're aiming at his left, he'll stagger step to the right. If you're aiming at his right, he'll stagger step to the left. So you kind of have to watch out when you're trying to hit him. And this goes the same for all bosses. But you can take him down with the bow, or you can use the technique that we were using on the earlier enemies and just use the sword, back off when he attacks, and then come up and hit him. So you'll get the level completed screen, that's when you save, and then after a second of being on this screen, your achievement should unlock. So there we go, rare achievement, because I guess a whole lot of people didn't mess with hard. As I said, I had some friends that were unable to do this game, just getting the timing down. And it's worth 70 gamer score apiece. So the final achievement for completing level 7, the last one that I have to do, is worth 80, and then I'll have the game 100%ed. I would recommend, as you see here, from killing all those enemies, I have 600 XP. So go ahead and put your strength to 10 and dump the rest into endurance, just in case you take a hit. Now, if you want to, I have 21,000 gold left. I have more than enough gold to go ahead and buy the crossbow, even though I'm not going to use it. I have more than enough gold even after that to buy the mace and to buy the flail. Like, I have every single weapon available to me now, and I still have 7,000 gold left. So this just goes to show, if anyone is having a difficulty obtaining gold, you are missing chests. That's literally all it boils down to, is you're not picking up the gold, which there's no reason other than level 2 for you to not do that. If you have the best weapons in the game early on and you have enough stats, you're going to be able to kill enemies easier. Killing enemies easier means that you're just going to make it easier for level 7, which is the final level. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I might comment a little bit here and there, but it's going to be mostly gameplay for you guys. Remember, you're welcome to leave a comment, any questions that you might have, anything like that. I'll do my best to help you out. Before I get too much into this level, I should tell you it's the relatively most annoying level, and that's because here you fight serpents. Now the good thing is there's doors, so you don't have an incredibly long aggro range, and there are these wonderful little spike traps that you can hide behind and resume the technique that we were using earlier. So that's up to you. The bad thing is there's serpents in this level. To me, they're the most annoying. Those things right there. They have quite a fast attack speed and a good range to it. There really is no point in fighting these things. If you want to, you can. I prefer to kill what is in my way as opposed to dealing with trying to fight these things or run away from them. Now you see that actually took 4 hits from the sword to go ahead and kill that serpent. So just keep that in mind. I'll try and fight this guy using the back off technique. I didn't get one of my hits in, messed up my timing. There we go. So like I said, picking up the gold, you can if you want to, but it only makes you feel good. That's all it does. It literally has no benefit to you whatsoever. When you open one of these doors, as soon as you click to open it, make sure that you back off. Because sometimes they put a serpent right behind the door, and if you're not careful, you can get insta-hit by it, like that serpent right there. And I am going to fight him by keeping him on this platform. Look at that pretty thing. Time for you to die. Pretty annoying snake. They'll do that. They'll spin around. Be careful you don't get too close to the edge of the platform and fall off. And I should mention, as the enemy is dying, do not jump to where the enemy is. It will block you and cause you to fall. So just keep that in mind. Now see, there's a serpent coming from that side, a serpent coming from this side, and I'm going to draw them back, fight them the exact same way, because this boss is the most annoying. There's also the greatest number of keys on this level, so there is no point losing HP. You can use the bow if you want to take down the serpent. Be careful because there is a second serpent. There he is. They'll eventually stop chasing you when you jump over these things, because I guess they're programmed that they can't reach you. But this is how I would say take them down. Play the game safe. So basically, rushing doesn't give you anything. What you're going to want to do, if any of you have ever heard the saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And that is the best approach to use for this game as well. Pretty much every corner you come around, there's usually going to be another serpent. Keep that in mind. Now, I am opening the chests, not so much for the gold, mostly for the arrows, because having arrows in the final boss fight does make it a bit easier. You don't have to have arrows. It's entirely up to you if you want to use them or not. I like to go ahead and open up these doors to see if there is a sneaky little snake hiding behind one of them. If there is, I can pull them over to the trap and kill them without having to be worried about the fact that, well, I don't know if I'm going to have another trap or if I'm going to miss the jump. Now, I've only missed the jump out of playing through this game 3 times now. I've only missed it about a half a dozen times, and mostly that was when I was being chased by multiple enemies and not really paying attention. As long as you're paying attention, you shouldn't have a problem making those jumps. However, anytime you jump, you're risking failing the jump. So you don't want to sit there and just play hopscotch back and forth. There might be some speed runners out there that want to run through this faster. If you want to do that, that's entirely up to you. That's your prerogative. You'll also, on this level, get some weird audio cues like that. That little extra guitar stroke string thing. I don't know why that happens, but just keep that in mind, that it is not the audio cue for triggering an enemy. Now, the final boss that you have to fight on this, with a maxed out strength character, takes approximately, from what people have said, 16 hits with the sword. Now, I don't know if that is 16 hits with the sword landing both strikes, or if that is 16 hits with the sword not landing both strikes. And if you're unsure if there was an enemy audio cue proc, just go ahead and check behind you real quick before or after you pick up the chest. It's always a good idea. So now we know where the final room is. I like to do a lap around the room just to make sure that I don't happen to have an enemy hiding behind something. I've had that happen where there's been a serpent in the final room that I just didn't see, and I actually took damage from it before I was able to get into the boss fight. So remember, it can happen. It's highly unlikely, but it can happen. As long as you have your timing down, though, this game should be no problem for you. Super freaking easy to complete. I do like that, and for the game and the price, can't really argue with it. That's why I gave it the whole 7. I mean, it could be better. I love games with better graphics. I love games with, you know, a little bit more intense combat or variations of combat. It would have been nice to potentially see, I don't know, a few additional weapons. But for what the game is, I can't really argue with it. We're here just to complete the game, get the achievements, because who here does not love gamer score? And if you can complete this on your own, great. Now you'll see, even with my upped endurance, one hit from the serpent, just because I missed my timing, did 25 points of damage. That is why I don't recommend fighting these guys normally. Even if you're sure of your timing 100%, it's too easy to take damage from them. And I would prefer to go into the boss fight with 100 HP, because this boss is very annoying. Now, on lower difficulties, on easy, there's no health cap, so you can actually open the chest and pick up food to boost your health over 100 points. On normal, you can't boost your health. Oh shit. See, I just messed my timing up right there. I'm gonna lure the snake back, because now I'm only gonna be able to make one mistake in the boss fight. And that's basically what I look at these snakes as. Every time I get hit, I'm losing the potential to make a mistake in the boss fight. There are people that have played it carefully enough to the point that they have been able to go ahead and see, there's another snake. That's why I wish they made a little bit of a noise, but they don't. I almost lost HP there on that snakey. Alright, there we go. He's dead. Thankfully. I'm going to keep the bow out now, because now I have to play cautiously. I could afford one mistake, but I would rather not have to go super sweaty for the boss. Because like I said, they hit ridiculously hard, and there's no way to heal. So, use your arrows if you have to. Say you're in the situation that I'm in, and that guy just took multiple arrows. Remember, you can sidestep their attacks, so sometimes it's worth it to sidestep. Also, the bow can be quite a convenient tool if you have more than one enemy aggroed on you. The serpents you can't do it with, but the normal enemies, you can usually get them stuck on a column. Like in one of these trap rooms, you can get them stuck on the columns and then only fight one at a time. Because I do highly recommend, whenever possible, you fight only one enemy at a time. It's way too risky to fight more than one enemy at once. I mean, I've made mistakes. I've lost HP. I've had to redo levels because of those mistakes. And that's why I say, just try and play it safe. It's not worth the death. Granted, deaths happen. Like, I mean, shit happens. But if you can avoid it, then you might as well. Makes things so much easier if you can avoid it. Also, on the serpents, the other reason why they're really annoying, they can fall in the pit and they don't instantly die like that one did. So when you jump across the pit, it is possible for them to still hit you. And then, well, that's not really your fault, but you still lose the HP at the end of the day. And the portion of the serpent that you can actually strike, their hitbox, there's no hitbox on their head. It's only from about a foot back from their head down to a foot from the ground. So they have a very small hitbox that you have to hit in order to deal damage to them. I thought that I could hit them in the face originally, like with the bow, and do extra damage, or hit them in the tail and, you know, still do damage. Nope, not a thing. So yeah, I am not going to risk it. We will drag this enemy back. The only reason why I'm even going for the chest right now is to replenish my arrows, because I would rather not have to get super close to this final boss. All of this XP, though, is pretty much useless because, well, you won't get a chance to spend it. It would be awesome if they gave you a chance to spend the remaining HP, XP, gold, all of that. If you could spend it before the final fight, that would be amazing. But they don't give you that option. And I kind of understand why, because it would make the final fight super easy. So, I'm just glad. I don't know if this is the way the game was designed to be or what, but I am glad that those pits exist, and I am glad that the enemies cannot jump over them. If the enemies could jump over them, then things would be a lot worse. So this is the part that takes time. And you can rush it. You can try and get by the snakes if you want, the serpents. It is possible. They have a single target directly forward attack pattern. So it is possible for you to actually walk past or around the serpents. But you really don't want them chasing you. I mean, you really don't want them chasing you as you're trying to go through and pick up keys and whatnot. It's just not exactly a fun experience. So that's key number 13. Now, I have never had an issue, no matter how long I've spent in one of these instances, to where enemies respawn. Some people have commented that they think enemies respawn, but I have never seen it happen. And I've been in here before for quite some time, just messing around with it, trying to test things like that. Just for sheer entertainment value, of course. But yeah, it doesn't look like you can farm XP, especially on the harder difficulty. Now, I'm going to make sure... I'm going to save those arrows, actually. I'm right next to this pit. The reason why I'm saving the arrows is I'm going to spam arrows in the boss fight. Which, as I showed you earlier, there's absolutely no reason why you should not have enough gold to have the bow. No reason whatsoever. If you are off for some reason and can only afford the crossbow, you still have a ranged weapon. So like right now, I need to pause the game and see where I need to go. I need to go down and around because there is obviously one key that I'm missing, and it is no longer in this side. So I should be free to go. This is where I've messed up before, though. I've messed up thinking that I was good and there was no serpents, opened a door that I hadn't have opened before, and then just got smacked in the face by a serpent. So it definitely can happen to you, and it's really annoying when, I should say, if it does happen. So be careful of doors that you have not opened. If you haven't opened the door, don't trust it, in short. Other than that, yeah, fairly simple, fairly easy game. I like to go slow when I approach a darkened area just to see if there is a snake. Like right there is a snake. I'm going to save the arrows, actually. There's a pit right here. Here, snakey. If you break the line of sight with them, you'll usually lose their aggro. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're fighting multiple ones or have multiple enemies aggroed on you at once. Try and break their line of sight with a column or a doorway. And usually, not saying it works every time, but usually you'll be able to disengage from one of the enemies. I'm going to collect as many arrows as I can for the boss fight. Here's another sneaky little snake. This is risky, but as you see, I broke the snake's line of sight, so he's not going to be coming for me anymore. I can go ahead and aggro him again, though, since I have this trap room right here. Go ahead and pick up the final key, and I'm good to go. If you're playing on a lower difficulty, you might want to explore any of the unopened doors or unrevealed spots on the map. The only reason why you might want to explore those is solely for the ability to pick up any food if you need some extra health or additional gold, so you can buy the weapons. But once you get to this level, the last level, there's really no point in risking combat with any more enemies than you absolutely need to. I risked combat, as you've seen, with multiple enemies, and due to that fact, well, I'm going into this fight with 50 HP. And that's really all that needs to be said. Now, I do have 39 arrows because I didn't use up a lot of arrows, so I'm going to try and use arrows in this fight. It's a large room, but remember, you are sealed inside the room, and you have to fight basically a giant serpent dude, which has a very fast attack, as you can see. So going around in a circle, trying to barrage him with arrows, making up for the way that he dodges, is a good idea, and as you can see, I am missing multiple times. A little bit because I'm worried about getting hit by him, but mostly due to the fact that he likes to jitter around. And his hitbox is basically his torso. Be careful not to get stuck on the walls. This is one creature you don't want to keep as a pet. Also, be careful, sometimes his hit animation is, well, very similar to his death animation. And yeah, it's definitely confused me more than once. And there you go, he's dead. I didn't get hit by him a single time. I used the bow. You can do the exact same tactic, though, using the melee weapon or using the sword. You'll get this little cutscene, which is alright. Basically, it just scrolls through and shows the bosses. Now, I think you can skip it and still get your cutscene, and still get your achievement, but I would rather just play through it. Let it play. It's very short. All it does is show you the bosses that you've had to defeat, which it's kind of cool. It's like, alright, you've defeated this enemy, you've defeated that enemy. And all of them are really easy bosses, except for the second and seventh one. So the second and final boss, those are the annoying ones. Other than that, the rest of them are easy. Hopefully this walkthrough helped you out, answered any questions that you might have about any of the levels whatsoever. If you did have any further questions, by all means, send me a message, leave a comment. I'll be happy to help you out to the best of my ability. But this is how that you 100% the game, and I hope you enjoyed. There you go. There's the achievement. The last one, complete level 7 on hard. I have complete level 6 on hard. And now you will see, if I look at that, I have all the achievements. All 1,000 gamer score for the game. So super simple to do, and you should be done. Now, if you enjoyed the video, remember, leave a like on it, share it with a friend, pick up the game, give it a try, you know, who knows, you might like it. Or you might just like an extra 1,000 gamer score. In any case, smash the like button, and of course subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay frosty.